Season 3,
Episode
episode
4.
4, halfway through.
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome.
2.
Yo.
2.
Welcome.
2.
The Energy and Heart Podcast.
Hosted by
Jiggy
and Steph.
Ta-da!
I'm just laughing because last week we fucked it up. And you said Steph.
Oh, that's right. Season 3,
Episode 3.
Wait. Yeah.
Hosted by
Steph. What? Oh my god. That was a hard day.
That was a fun one. Okay.
We trying to talk about weekends, updates, anything?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yo, I want to talk about so my mentor Eva, she had her very first conference over the weekend. And I want to talk about this because I'm super inspired by how the conference came together. And super long story short, the person who was supposed to help her put the conference together basically kind of like dropped the ball and disappeared. So nothing about the conference was actually not even done. Like, it wasn't even started. So the only thing that was for sure definite was that the conference venue was booked, but everything else, like the programs that she was supposed to be selling, the merch, what kind of merch, the food, the coffees, the teas, the little snacks, the seating, the music, the audio, the slides. They didn't even have an idea of who the speakers were gonna be. Like, literally nothing was even started. Like, not even like halfway done. It wasn't even started. And so yeah, another long story short, my mentors, one of her friends kind of like was like, yo, if you need help, let's get some help. But Eva has a really hard time asking for help, like any of us. And so the friend kind of did like a bad signal and basically brought us all together. And so on a random night, I get a text from Eva and was like, we're having a meeting tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Can you make it? And I was like, sure. And I go, and it turns out to be like an emergency meeting. Like, nothing about the conference is done. Can anyone help? And so like there was like 5 of us, 5 women. And it was funny because it was Women's History. It was like Women's
Women's
Day,
History. Yeah.
or
month.
something, like
Yeah.
the day though, like International Women's Day or something like that. And I was
Oh.
like, look at how the women come together and pull through, and we don't need no man, and we just make it happen. And so we just like got together, started like just any idea we had, we all just like let it out. And 2 of us have had conference volunteer experiences for Eric Thomas conferences. So we were like, this is what we liked about his conferences. This is what we didn't like. This is what we want to do. This is what we definitely don't want to do. Like, all of these ideas came out, and in 2.5 weeks, we threw a conference. And from the speakers lined up to their slides, their presentations being done, to the run of show, the audio, the lighting, the music, to merch. Like, her merch was so fire. To all the caterers, like VIP, everything, the graphics, like her videographer like came through with the graphics. Like, everything was done in 2.5 weeks, and it was an excellent conference. It was excellent. And the thing that I'm inspired by most is how quickly everybody came together, the willingness of everybody coming to come together. Like, everybody got their own jobs. They have their own kids and stuff, but they still came together at the last minute for a common cause. And the willingness to help was like at the highest level. And then also the calm and the patience and the level of communication that everybody had with each other. Like, anybody could feel under pressure and be like, no, we gotta freak out and da. But there was like zero of that. And I'm just like, wow, Eva continues to inspire me in ways. It's not just about like money and credit and da. It's just like the people in her life and in her circle and her friends. I continue to be inspired by like what kind of friends she has. And I'm like, you know what? I was doing a reflection, and I was like, if I were to throw a conference and somebody dropped the ball and I had to gather people last minute, 2.5 weeks to throw a conference, who would be down for me, and would anybody be down for me? I think the answer is yes.
Oh, the
I would like to
answer is
say yes.
100%
I would
yes.
like to say yes, but I also wonder, would it have been executed at the level of grace that these women had? And that's like a curiosity of mine, but yeah.
I 100% say yes.
Okay,
Well,
well,
I'll say
shit.
100% yes on
But
my behalf.
even the thought of it, even the thought of it is like so vulnerable, and that's like where I want to also shout out Eva and like her level of vulnerability, asking for help, because like how do you ask people for help to throw a conference in 2.5 weeks when they have their own jobs and their own kids? Like how do you expect people to like fly out to the conference?
I mean,
That's like a lot of trust too. So
yeah.
no, everybody did a good job. Now we're already planning the next one. See y'all in 3 months. It's gonna
I
be
love
great.
that. I definitely was gonna call that out. Like I feel like listening to like how Eva went about it, like there's just so much trust.
Mm-hmm.
And because easily you could have thrown the towel too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You
she
know,
could have
like could
definitely
have
given up.
had two choices there.
Mm-hmm.
But just love that she took a chance with it and like received like the support from everyone.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. I think it's like good for her to feel reassured that even though she's had experiences of people dropping the ball, that look at who else is in her life to help her out. You know, like the Bible always says, you already have what you need. And even if it's not you, even if it's not like within you, it's in your circle. That's so fire. Yo,
That
it
is
doesn't
super
have to
fire.
be within you, dog. It's within the circle. Goddamn. That's the podcast. Goodbye.
Wow, I love that. My weekend, I feel like every time I come in here, I don't remember what happened. I have to like recall the weekend, but I went to a wedding this weekend for my dad's
Wait, you did? You
I
went to
did.
a wedding this
I
weekend?
went to a wedding this
What the
weekend on
fuck?
Saturday, yeah. It's with my dad's cousin. And I hadn't seen like a lot of my family members in a while. And so like I think this is like the thing I love about weddings. It's just like brings everyone together. Like it's just a reason to like eat, it's a reason to drink. And I was just like looking at my cousins, I was like, damn, dude, I watched y'all like grow up. Like I was sitting next to, it was like a group of like 10 of us. And I was sitting next to my cousin who is like 16. And I just like looked at everyone, I was like, I just realized I'm like over a decade older like than my cousin. And like everyone can drink now, you know, like everyone turned 21. And I was just like, dude, I like watch these kids like grow up, you know, like I like played with them. I like babysat them sometimes. And so I think it was like just really special to like come together with all my family members. Oh, and then I also ran into someone from my fraternity there who from my healthcare like fraternity when I was in college, who was a co-resident with my dad's cousin, who's kind of like my aunt, I guess. But she went to pharmacy school like together. Yeah. And so it's like so random. I think it's like so serendipitous. And then at the same time, I think what I was thinking about leaving the experience is just like, wow, there are some friendships like, you know, like this person is somebody that I really loved, like enjoyed hanging out with like in college, but not necessarily somebody who's like in my like closer circle. But I think just left knowing like, wow, like it's nice to like reconnect with people and also be at peace with knowing that like this may be the only interaction like we have in like a really long time. And I think because I'm very like, oh, I hate endings, like I can't deal with that, like it's really hard. I was just like, wow, like I feel good being at peace with just like, oh, there's no need to like reach out again. We're just like, you know, good with just seeing each other like this one time. And so I was just like, wow, I think that's what like weddings bring is like closure and like peace with like certain relationships. I was not expecting to see this person. Yeah. And so that was really cool. And I think the other cool thing about the wedding was like, because I'm like Chinese and Viet, like, but my parents primarily speak Viet, and a lot of like the culture and what we experience at home feels like more Viet. I forget that like my blood is like Chinese, and like my dad's cousin's wedding actually had like lion dancing. So like they came in and like performed, and I was just like, dude, this is like screams my childhood. Like during like Lunar New Year, like always coming out, seeing all this. And I was just like, man, like it just made me think like what would I want to like show and bring like into my own wedding in the future. So yeah, just thoughts about that.
Not me becoming speechless whenever you talk about your future wedding.
But yeah, that was my weekend. What other context? Oh, something did happen that I think will be somewhat like related to what we're gonna like chat about today. But I realized like very recently that I feel like I still am struggling with like my own like bandwidth, because like this weekend outside of the wedding stuff was actually like me making plans with a bunch of people because I'm taking the next week off from work, and then like me canceling on everyone. Like because I realized the day of I just like don't have bandwidth. And so I think I'm still like in this weird phase of like I'm not accurate in like being able to determine like how much bandwidth I truly have to like meet up with people, spend time with people. Yeah.
So what are we going to talk about today?
I mean, I'll let you talk about it.
What we're going to talk
Yeah.
about today is, what is this? C-E-Woes. What I wanted to talk about today is on perseverance. And I'll just get started on it. So I think that the importance of perseverance is, you know, talked about a lot and thrown around a lot, in especially in the hustle culture, in the motivation industry. They're always like, you gotta persevere through this and that through life. Life always gets hard, and when are you gonna give up? You got to get through it no matter what. And I get that. Like, I'm a huge believer in perseverance, and I think it's necessary. I think it's a necessity. I think that you can't really like ever get to the next level without a certain level of perseverance. But I also think that there are moments where we need to realize that it's not doing us any good. I think that there are times where perseverance can help us get to the next level, persevering through a project, through the day, through a hardship in a relationship, whatever it might be. I think perseverance, first and foremost, is really important, but we also have to be aware of the moments when it no longer serves us. And so when we're talking about bandwidth, it's like, yeah, we could be busting our asses and working so much and putting in all the hours into our businesses or whatever, but we persevere. But to a point where we're putting our bandwidth and at risk, and now the relationships are suffering, or our health is suffering, or whatever is suffering because of perseverance. And I think that it's really important to have the awareness of not letting perseverance allow us to lose sight of what is actually really important. So, yeah, that's, I guess, where I'm going to leave it off. Does that kind of set you up for success? Here's the baton.
Yeah, I mean, I think in what you said, it's like I think there's a lesson here in like boundaries, and I feel like, you know, man, I'm gonna start with like Kato and I having a conversation because I feel like it's relevant to this, where it's just like you asked like how far are you gonna go before it like starts deteriorating and starts creating suffering like in other parts of your life, right? And I think a very real like reality that we kind of mentioned in the previous episode is just like the impact that has on our relationships, right? And I think like yes, it's justified in that like we do have to do what we have to do, but like what are the boundaries in which like things become not okay? Like how far is far? Like at what cost? Like how much is when is enough, right? I think is the big question. And that's something that I've been talking to like Kato about, because it's just like it's so in my nature to like want to like work hard and want to like do what I need to do and like look at a problem and be like, I can do it, you know, like that's like that. And I think it's a double-edged sword when you think about it. It's like when you look at a problem, you're just like, you know what, like I can do anything. I'm gonna persevere. I'm gonna like figure this out, like all this stuff. And like I think with that mentality, it's just like it's great when you're trying to do stuff in the moment, right? But then there's also just like, when are you checking with yourself? Are you accurately assessing like what is the impact of this on like other parts of your life, and like what do you define as like success anyway to begin with? And so I think like when we think about like perseverance, like there's bounds for everything, I think. And I think that's like the lesson that I'm sort of like sitting with now, in my own CEO's journey, is just like when is enough, right? And so bringing it back to like Cato, right? It's just like it's very real that like my experience and my struggle impacts like his experience with me, right? Like when I show up during the weekends and I'm too tired to like do something, it's just like, how long is it until like he's like done with that, right? And like what am I asking of him to do, and is that like aligned for both of us, right? And like I don't like to I think like the word fairness sort of like comes to mind, like what is fair for both people in a chapter. And like I think one of the things I'm realizing is just like when a goal is so large, right? Or when you have such a big dream, or when you want to accomplish so many great things, like sometimes like I think that can actually like make you double down on the perseverance versus like, okay, like how do we like chunk things out, right? To like make it so it's possible to get to this like next like part. And I think that that's something that has to be clearly articulated, or it can like deteriorate things that are like around you. And so Kano and I have like had a lot of conversations around like what is this next like stage, like what like because he like, you know, he's in a place where it's just like, I'm ready to just like make memories with you, I want to like be with you, like I want you to be present, but I'm just like unable to actually do that. And so it's just like, at what cost, for me and for him, right? And so like I think there's also this complex like responsibility of just like being aware also of what the impact is, and like what is the compromise, like when you're talking about other parts like of your life. I think this is very different from like going, you know, 100 or 0. I think it's like what I know for me, I'm like, that's the background I come from. It's 100 or 0. You either go like 100% or just like, like not gonna do it, you know? Like, and I'm just like, I think that works in different places, but I think it's been my own like journey to like discern when is that appropriate, when is that not, when is that like perseverance actually helpful versus like hurtful or like harmful, you know? So that's how it's like personally relevant like right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I think I want to touch up on like the health and wellness aspect of it. That we can. What is it that you're willing to persevere through? And I think in terms of what we're talking about here, it's usually about like work. And when we persevere through work, it's like we get gratification and whatever the success or the completion from work, because that's what we're dedicating ourselves to and that's what we're persevering through. But then when you clock out and you look around, how is the quality of your life doing? Is your laundry done? Are your dishes done? Like, is your house clean? Like, are you taking care of yourself? Are you happy? Like, are you mentally well? And you know, I always encourage people. I have this saying, like, I want to help the human beneath the beast. And it's like anybody can be on beast mode, but what about the human beneath that? And is that human taken care of? We can always work, we can always persevere. And I always say this too, that working hard is easy, resting is hard. Because hard work is easy. We're more accustomed to doing that because of the culture that we live in. But when you clock out and when you're not no longer the entrepreneur, when you're no longer the employee, when you're no longer this or that, and you're just on your own living life, not just working, but living life, who are you and how are you? Like, how are your meals? Like, what are you eating? Are you eating, and what are you eating? Do you not have time to go grocery shopping or meal prep that you're constantly eating, like ordering in all the time? Or like, do you take care of yourself? Like, do you go to the gym? Are you like, or at least doing yoga, something, like taking care of yourself? How is, your living situation? I think that all of these are a like external reflection of what's actually going on inside. And psychologically, they say that like the cleanliness of your home is a reflection of your mind or something like that. And the more clutter there is in your outside world, the eyes see that. The eyes then process the information to the brain, and the brain processes it as there's clutter in your mind too. And so I think that's also personally why I'm like obsessed with cleaning too. But yeah, these are all things that matter. Like, even if it's not about relationships with other people, it's also like consider the relationship you have with yourself. Like, how are you really, as they freaking say on social media nowadays. But yeah, again, like, I think that perseverance is necessary. I think that is so important. I think that there's a time and place for it though. And it's also to a point where like, how much more do you need before you like, dude, like, is it actually worth it? Are you actually going to get what you want? And what is the reason behind why you want to persevere so much? Is it for yourself, or is it to prove yourself to other people? And otherwise, we're just going to end up burned out. And by the time we're done persevering because we got to the finish line, we're too burnt out to even enjoy what we're supposed to be celebrating. So just wanted to bring a different perspective to perseverance.
If you were to treat, like, I imagine, like, everyone has the capacity to, I think, persevere. I can't say everyone, just like, that's like what we're used to, right? And so like, what if you treated perseverance as like a finite like resource? And like, what would you actually like invest in, right? Versus thinking that it's an unlimited thing. Like, I will always like be able to persevere. It's like, no, like, I'm limited in being able to do that. Like, what is the most important things that I can actually persevere in? Like, what's actually worth it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a whole another conversation about knowing how to prioritize your priorities.
Yes. Yeah.
And be honest about the level of bandwidth that you have. But yeah.
What do you feel like is worth persevering in? Like, in this like current chapter? Right, like making it very real for like people who are like listening in. It's just like, yeah, like as a concept, right, like we can all understand that, but it's just like, what does it look like in your life? Like, what does it look like in mine?
I think
Right.
for me, like, what's most important is believing in my business. Like, well, not, I can't say that. Not my business. Believing in myself and like my future and the calling that I have. And it just so happens to have something to do with my business. But it's about believing in myself at the end of the day. Like, businesses can come and go, or it can die or live, but I have to continue believing in myself and my gifts and my talents. I think I've actually learned throughout time about how much I want to persevere in relationships too, like romantic relationships. I used to be this person where I'm like, "Ah, I'm gonna work on it till it works out." And then I've realized recently, like, what is working out? And it's like, it's not marriage, because you still even work on it further when after you get married. And so then it's about like boundary setting, and it's like, what is not worth it for me anymore when it completely like deteriorates my health and my wellness and my mental health. But there's just things that just I once thought was worth persevering, and maybe it isn't anymore at the cost of my own well-being. And it just so happens that it's like relationships and how my business can operate. I'm never going to stop believing in myself, that's for sure. I'm always going to pursue everything that I desire in life. It's just about like, how do I go about it?
It's very real. I think for me, like, I was thinking this phrase came up when you're saying like doing everything in your romantic relationships for it to work out, right? I was just thinking like my mentality all the time is like, I gotta leave everything on the table. I gotta know I pulled all the stops. Like, and I don't know how
Yeah, that's
healthy that
exactly
is,
how it used to
but
be.
like, yeah, like I think like I'm realizing like a point where it's just like pulling all the stops is actually impacting, it's pulling all the stops specifically in like work, is seriously impacting like other pieces of my life. And so I think right now, like I'm just thinking about like, because I'm so deeply like my work identity and like me is like so close together right now, and I'm trying to like decouple all of that and just say like discern between like, you know, even if my business is not doing well, like it does not mean that I'm a bad person, which is like, you know, a failure, which is like typically equated in the same like put in the same sentence. And so I think I'm currently in the place of like reevaluating like, you know, perseverance is like good. And I think it requires me to like really start to love myself more. Like, you know, you said like, you just said like, oh, not at the cost of my own like health, right? And I think I've always put the cost of my own health like before. I think if you've been following the entire time in the series, like you've heard this like throughout, right? But I think like it's finally like Saturn return, like finally clicking for me, like where I'm just like, oh shit, like if I'm not grounded in me as a person, if I'm only grounded in like I want success for my team or I want success for this company, like my coach recently like told me like, no, like have you ever considered that maybe when you get clear on what's important to you and what you like as an individual beyond your business, like is like what you value and what you want, right? That will make it easier for everyone else to like support you and work with you. And I'm just like, it's like a very easy concept but very hard. So yeah, that's my little take on that. Big size.
Man, this has been a good series. Like,
I mean,
it's sad. It's
yeah,
sad as
it's
fuck.
very
But
real. It's
yeah.
very real. Yeah.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
That was good.
Straight to the point.
Yeah.